Welcome to From Home to Hustle. I'm Kelly Campbell, and I'm passionate about sharing stories of incredible stay-at-home moms who are building businesses and creating income from home. Well, hey guys, welcome back to From Home to Hustle. I'm your host, Kelly Campbell. If you've been around for any period of time, you know that I am passionate about women who are home and building businesses at the same time. God is creating and enlarging our capacity for greater things. And my guest today is no different. Sabrina Hammonds is the founder of Kingdom Connections podcast and media agency, where she helps transformational leaders amplify their message and connect with their ideal audiences. She is passionate about sharing stories and testimonies that inspire and transform lives. Her work focuses on strategic podcast guesting, fostering kingdom collaboration, and uniting leaders to leverage their unique gifts. Rooted in quality over quantity, Sabrina creates meaningful connections that elevate influence and expand impact. Through her efforts, the body of Christ is coming together like never before, and the kingdom is advancing here on earth. I love that. Sabrina, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me.
I am so glad you're here. Okay, I loved what you said, that you're rooted in quality over quantity. But before we kind of dive into that, I want to know a little bit about exactly what you do. How did you get started? And let's go from there.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about how I got started is I left the profession of teaching. I resigned back in 2020 after being an elementary school teacher and really just to be home with my kiddos. I just wanted to be more present. My husband and I were both full-time teachers and we were very busy. So I came home that year, and within a few months, God said, "You're going to start a business." So I really wasn't looking for entrepreneurship or anything. I was a teacher, and that's all that I really knew to do. But when I knew that God said you're going to start a business, I was like, okay, well, what does that even look like? I don't know anything about business. And he very clearly said, start with what you know how to do. Start with what is in your hands. And so I did a little digging and just trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? What can I provide? And so I started with a virtual assistant business because I knew that I could manage a calendar. I was pretty organized as a teacher, and so I could do that for businesses online. And then very quickly launching the business in that same year after taking just this course that I found online. Um, my very first client for virtual assistant business became my first client for podcast booking services. Now, this was when I wasn't looking for podcasts. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know anything about helping people speak or share their messages. But this woman quickly became my very dear friend, and it was through her story and her testimony that really impacted my life. And I told her, I said, "You need to be speaking and sharing." And she said, "Yeah, the Lord's already told me I'm supposed to do that."
Wow.
And so I just quickly asked, like, could I help you do that? And I didn't even know what I was offering her. It was like I was speaking, but I didn't, like, why did I say that? Why did I just do that? But I felt this peace on the inside that this is the direction the Lord was taking me. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. But I felt the Lord say, "It's okay.
Mm.
This is the direction that we're going." And so honestly, I just was praying and I started Google researching. I was like, where are people speaking? How
Mm.
are people getting their message out? Just a Google research. And that's when I discovered podcast. And I was like, okay, I think this is the direction that we're going to go in. And so it really just started with that one person and her story and her testimony that I feel like it compelled me to want to champion her message
Mm.
because I knew the impact of her story and I knew that it could have an impact on other people that could hear. And so that's really the start of the podcast booking agency. And honestly, it's just been this journey of digging deep and really seeking the Lord, like, what is this that you've called me to do?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I was booking her on podcast and I didn't know what a pitch was or how to do that well, but I did know how to communicate what the message that she had. And so
Mhm.
I just did that through email and people were opening their doors to her. And I mean, and I was no expert, right? It was just, hey, I know she has a powerful message and I know that it could impact your audience.
Mm.
Would you be interested in having her on? It was really straightforward, but from the heart, like a place of serving people. And I was just blown away that these podcasts and these hosts, were saying yes to her when I didn't even understand what I was doing.
Wow. That is so good because I have find myself in those situations where I say yes to somebody going and then leaving going, what did I just commit to? I
Uh
know
huh.
nothing about this, but there's a piece about it. There's a
Yeah.
piece attached to it that you're like, okay, I know I was supposed to like jump in on that. I know that I was supposed to. And then you look back and go, okay, Lord, you were in it the whole time. You were leading it. It was like a step to the next step. And so
Yes.
I see that. And it's also too like you were helping somebody. We've talked about like, services. We've talked about like on here, like providing services for people or finding what people need and everything. But you started by helping. I love that.
Right. And I didn't even realize just how passionate that I was about people's stories and testimonies.
Mm,
But it was almost like the Lord began to show me these little breadcrumbs, like along the way. And I began to even hear, like, my family would talk about me as being nosy. Like, Mom, you're just so nosy. You're always wanting to know people's business. And I would even hear that. And it was like the Lord was showing me it's not nosy. Like,
mhm.
you really love people's stories and
Yeah.
you want to know beyond surface level.
Yeah.
And so when I began to realize what God was really leading me into, I just thought only the Lord would lead me to a place that I would never find on my own. I would never search for, but it would be the very thing that lights me up on the inside. Like he took
Yeah.
my passion and love for people's
Yeah.
stories and testimonies,
Yeah.
and he led me to a business where I get paid to
Yeah.
champion their messages. Like only the Lord.
I know, and I can identify with that because that's where From Home to Hustle was birthed out of. Was I love people's stories. Everybody has a story. Everybody wants to share their story unless,
Yeah.
they have some, reasons why they don't want to, trauma, things like that. But for the most part, people want to share about them. And so, leading up to this, I can identify with that because there was a part that I would find myself just being out in public and people would just come up to me and start talking to me and sharing their stories. And I had one lady who was like, I don't know why I just told you all that, but I feel like I can just trust you and I feel like I can just talk to you. And I was like, God, that's a gift. Like
Yeah.
I need to use that gift and start. And that's literally where this came from is hearing other people's
Wow.
story of how they did and then encouraging, inspiring, and making a business out of it.
Wow. Isn't that really cool, though? How
It is.
the Lord can just use these, what seems like natural
Yes.
situations.
Yes.
And then it's almost like this nudge to say,
Yep.
that's a gift. Like,
Yep.
hey, you're
Yep.
you're gonna use this, right? To help other people share
Yes.
their stories and their messages.
Exactly. And it's like it comes natural. I know like for me, I tried like MLMs, I tried other things, and it was just like a striving. Like I felt like I was
Yeah.
tilling hard ground and just not getting anywhere with it. And then this came so natural. And I was like, okay, Lord, there's grace on that. And I'm not saying it comes
Yeah.
without work. I mean, it
Right.
is, but it says, what is that scripture that talks about that you'll have no painful toil? The blessings of the Lord make one rich and add no painful toil
No
to it.
sorrow. No. Yeah,
Yes,
you're
or no
right.
sorrow to it. And so there
Yeah.
is a working to be done when you start something, but it's
Right.
not painful. There's no sorrow attached to it.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think you're right in what you say. Yes, there is work, but the thing is, I think sometimes what we do is if we first think about the quote unquote work, like what can I do to make money?
Mhm.
And probably what can I do easily to make money? Like
Right.
to me, that leads you to a place that feels hard and it feels like striving.
Mhm.
But if perhaps you just pay attention to some things that the Lord has already deposited within you and go in that direction and lead with the passion and the heart and the really the desires of our heart,
Yes.
that can lead you into something that you never really would have discovered had God not highlighted those gifts and things that are already on the inside of you.
It's true. It's true. Okay, so with that being said, how old were your kids when you started actually like working and doing this as a business?
Yeah, so let's see. We have two younger ones and two older ones.
Okay.
And so I had three kiddos still at home at the time. Um, Gosh, were they about to graduate and then two elementary age kiddos? So right now I have a Bailey who's 10 and an Emery who's 6. And so, as you can imagine, they were pretty young
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago. And so, I'll be real honest, when I first came home from teaching, my goal was really just to be present
Mm-hmm.
with them. And so, when I felt the Lord leading me to start a business, I was very apprehensive about that because we weren't homeschooling at the time. So 2 years in to the business is when I felt the Lord say, you're going to homeschool your kiddos. Like I really just began to feel that desire.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was like, okay, it's either or, right, Lord? Like I'm building and stewarding this business that you've called me to, and now I believe I'm supposed to be homeschooling my kiddos. And so I'll be honest, I did not see how it could be both and.
Mm-hmm.
But when I knew that it was the direction that the Lord was leading me to, and at that time, the kiddos were going into the third grade and then in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty young. And so I couldn't in my own logical mind see how this could work out. So I say that to say, I understand the objections and I understand this idea of this is too much or this is too big and I just cannot.
Yeah.
But when the Lord puts desires on our heart, like I knew that this was a business that God was calling me to steward and to build, that it was so much bigger than just making money.
Mm-hmm.
But there was purpose in this. And then also when I knew that the Lord was leading me to homeschool and there was a peace about it
Yeah.
that this was the direction that we're going in. I was like, okay, if this is where the Lord is leading me, then I am equipped and
Yeah.
I am qualified.
Right.
I
I
may
think,
not see like the how, like
right.
how this is all going to work out in the beginning,
Yes.
but you really just have to go in that direction and you have to trust.
You do. I love that you said that you had business first and then you start homeschooling. A lot of the people on the channel, it's they homeschooled and then they started a business. And so I love that there's a different perspective here. And so I want to talk about like just some practical things, like how did you go from starting your business and everything, and then all of a sudden you're adding homeschool to this? Did you have days where you felt overwhelmed? How did you balance? Was there grace to be given? Like, I mean, like, just tell us
Yeah.
some practical things that you had to walk through.
So I find it so interesting that the interview is taking place today, and we've had some struggles today in particular,
Same, same. Are you
with
talking about in
just
homeschool, in your homeschool?
yes,
Yeah.
uh-huh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So we're in year two. That we're wrapping up year two of homeschooling in
Okay.
our home this year, and so but today in particular, it kind of started off a little rough. With some sibling fights and things like that, and then just some other things. And so I was literally sitting in here thinking, Lord, I'm not even qualified to speak about this, but then I realized like there is grace
Hmm.
that it's a journey, it's not an
Yes.
arrival.
Yes.
So I don't even speak or share from a place of arrival, but you know what, it's this flow, this there's no complete balance,
Right.
right? It's not completely
Right.
balanced to where I'm
Right.
giving this equal time to business and equal time to
Yeah.
homeschool, but it's a flow. And so, very practically, I think that's one thing to remember. Like, you're not going to get this thing set up and within 3 weeks or, a couple weeks or whatever, it's just going to be running like a well-oiled machine.
Hmm.
No.
Yeah.
When I first started, it was let's just see what is going to work for us.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed a curriculum
Hmm.
only because my personality, I guess. There's a lot of people that do unschooling, and I don't have any judgment as to however you want to homeschool, but I
Right.
think it depends on who you are
Hmm.
and how you operate in life. And for me, especially coming from a teaching background, um, I thrive more in structure and
Right.
schedules. And so I have had to kind of unlearn that it's not public school and that's okay.
Hmm.
But start with the things that like what do I need in order for us to maybe get started and
Hmm.
to function? So
Yeah.
I knew I need to start with some kind of curriculum and just the basics, the math and the reading.
Yes.
And so I started by choosing those things and coming up with some sort of very basic schedule. This is
Hmm.
not where we are today, but I did start with okay, let me just see if maybe I can work in the mornings and that'll be my block of time. And then we can do school in the afternoons together. And let me decide on what are some things that the kiddos can do on their own without me having to be right there.
I fully
Well,
support independent work. I mean,
yeah,
I know it's, age, depending on the age, but
right.
it's actually good for them to learn to start doing some independent work and independent playtime. Not so
Yeah,
they can get things done, but it does help them in the longer run too. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone.
for sure. Yeah. And you have to learn what works for your children.
Yes.
And you would think like in my mind, I've taught children like I should be able to do this. I should know all the things, but these are my kids and they're two very different children. And so start with what you think is going to work.
Yeah.
So I had some things in mind. I think my younger, kiddo can do some of these activities. And so I just kind of had a list of things. These are the things that you can do. Well, I learned that longer time blocks are not actually going to work for me. Like
Hmm.
I've learned that I can't be in the office and work for an extended period of time. They have to be in shorter increments because we need to have check-ins.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that what's going on outside the office is not this quiet chaos, right?
Right.
Because it's quiet,
Right.
but sometimes I would go out and I would find that instead of working, they built this massive fort in our living room and they had done no work.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so again, just starting with what you can set up and then trying it for a little while and then going back and something that I've learned that has been very helpful is that at the end of every week, I try to set aside some time to reflect on, okay, this is what is working,
Mhm.
and this definitely is not
Yes.
working.
That's
And
smart.
then and
That's
then
very smart.
making some little changes and
Yeah.
tweaks along the way. Like
Yeah.
we don't have to change our entire system
Right.
and go back to ground zero,
Hmm.
but recognizing this is working and this is not,
Yep.
and these are some things that I can change.
I think that's smart. Even for me, my oldest just turned 16. He's a sophomore, so I've been homeschooling since pre-K. So, you do the math type thing. But even now, like I still have to go back and readjust some things. I mean, I've been working from home for, let's see, he's 16. Gosh, maybe 9 years, 8 years, something
Wow.
like that. And so each season, I have to go back and readjust some things. For me, we started homeschooling, and so we already had the schedule, we had a routine down, and then I added a baking business in that where I was baking out of my home. And so there was challenges with that as far as like, okay, mom is not entirely here for this increment of time. And so I think either way, whether you start out homeschooling and then build a business, or you build a business and then you homeschool, you're going to face challenges. You're going to have
Right.
to just learn how to navigate, and not feel guilty, but also have discernment of
Yeah,
not feeling guilty, but also, this is good for your children and your family as well. Like, it does take a level of discernment.
it does for sure. And understanding that if you do have those days that you would consider like, oh my gosh, homeschool felt like a flop today,
Mhm.
or my business really just was, I didn't do anything in my business. You have those
Yeah.
days where you feel like you, I don't want to say failed, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Like I failed today at homeschooling, or my business got none of my attention. Recognize like it's not a fail. Like
Mm.
we're we're learning and we're growing.
Yes.
And again, going back to learning what works and learning what doesn't, and then having those different seasons where, and I think for me, coming from the classroom, I have really had to understand that homeschool is, it's what's best for, like you can make it what is best for your own family and your children. There
Yeah.
is no quote unquote this is the right way,
Right.
or this is the right way to work from home
Right.
and homeschool. It is what works best for your family and
Yeah.
your children. And you're not ruining their education
Right.
or their life,
Right.
right? When you have days where it just doesn't go as well as what you had hoped.
Yeah. That is solid advice. Solid advice. Okay. So, you've been homeschooling for a few years. You have your business. Where are you at right now? So what are you doing right now?
So this year in particular will be year 5 for the business, and then wrapping up year 2 of homeschooling. And so I would say that for the business, I feel like I should be further along. I'm just going to be honest than I am,
Okay. I love
because
it.
it feels like I've been building a business for a while. But it's been this journey, and there's been changes along the way where
Mm.
in the beginning this is what I thought it was going to look like, but along the way I've realized what the vision for the business is.
That's
So
good.
it's not something that has happened just overnight, and I didn't know it in the beginning. Um, and so I know now that God has called me to serve transformational leaders who have a message that's so much bigger than a business or a
Mhm.
book, but it's a culture shifting message. And so I feel like that's a level of clarity that God has given me over the past several years.
Mhm.
So now I'm in a place where I feel like the foundation of the business is very solid. And so it's just a matter of continuing to lean into the Lord as to how to continue to grow.
That's good.
And
I like
then,
that you started before you had a full vision. I love
yeah,
it.
like I started with what I did know, but I didn't really understand where we were going, where the
Mhm.
Lord was going to lead, what it was going to look like.
Yeah.
But I just had to start with what I did know
Yeah.
and serve well. And the interesting thing about that is, again, going back to starting with your passion and really serving
Yeah.
people, is pretty much 95% of my business up to this point has all been referrals and connections and introductions. And so without having the know-how of how to market my business,
Yeah.
I feel like the Lord just continues to say, I want you to serve them well.
Mhm.
And in doing that, it has brought people over and over and over. And I can't even make this up. Like I've grown a business literally just on referrals and serving people well.
Mhm.
And so don't underestimate just taking your passion and your love for whatever it is that you're doing and the ability to serve people well. God can take that and multiply your business beyond what you thought was possible.
Yeah.
Even if you have no marketing, like you don't know how to market,
Yeah.
but you do know how to serve people well.
That's good. Would you call yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I would say that in the beginning, much more of the introvert,
Mhm.
like, please don't make me go live, Lord. Please don't make me talk to more than one person at a time. And even that was a struggle. Um, but the more conversations that I have had with people over the years, and the more that I have just said yes to the opportunities that have been presented, the more now I'm more on the extrovert side. Like, I really do love talking to people. I really do love, getting the message out there. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
now if I were to say like it's just completely comfortable and I don't ever get nervous, that would be silly, because I still am just like, Lord, really? Like, you want me to get on there and say that? And you want me to do this in front of people?
Yeah.
And
That is where I have found myself being stretched the most, is when we're saying, okay, you're going to do this. And I don't know if it's just our age or where we're at in life, but it just feels so foreign. But I'm realizing that the stretching, the pruning, all that is for my benefit to promote
yeah,
his kingdom, but it is for my benefit and it's for
yes,
my growth. So obedience is key to that.
for sure. Yeah, because you you don't know what you're willing, I guess, to do, or
Right.
what God can do, unless you step out there
Yes.
and just say yes, even when you feel like it's so messy. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to speak because I'm not an eloquent speaker, or
Right.
I don't want to do that because I don't like to even hear myself talk.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but you don't even have any idea what the Lord can do with what feels like a mess on your end. He can take that and create something really beautiful with it.
That's really good. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert, being obedient to God. I mean, it just doesn't matter. Obedience, it doesn't say being obedient to God only if you're an extrovert and it's easy for you, or only if you're an
Yes,
introvert and some things are easy for you. I mean, being obedience is sacrificial anyways, regardless of
yeah,
your personality, regardless of your talents.
that's right.
Yeah. Well, we are almost out of time, so can you just give us just really quick, just one practical advice to just get going?
Yes. So I would say, whether you're starting with homeschool or business, whatever it is, whether you're adding that other thing to your plate, I would just say, don't first of all, don't try to figure it all out
Mhm.
in the beginning, but add very small things.
I like that.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to add the business plan and all of the things in the beginning if you're just starting a business, and you don't have to add all the homeschool stuff if you're just starting with that. Just, what can I add in order to get moving? What is one
That's good.
small step?
I love that. And Sabrina, where can people find you at?
Yes, so you can find me on Facebook, Sabrina Hammonds, my website, kcpodcastagency.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So those are the three places that people can connect.
That's wonderful. And I will put all of that down in the description below. And okay, one last question before we end. Okay, is your sink full of dishes or is it empty?
Gosh, I'm pretty sure my sink does have dishes in there because we rotate chores.
Yes.
So one day it's one kiddo's turn to do the dishes, and today I'm pretty sure it's my youngest. It's her turn. And I always have to help her at the end of the day. So I'm pretty sure there's dishes in there right now. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that is so great. I know we have dishes in the sink, on the side of the sink, on the counters, because I mean, there's six of us, five of us are home all day long. We love to cook, we love to bake, and so there's always dishes. Always. Well, this has been so wonderful. I really appreciate your time and your encouragement and your practical advice and everything. And so, guys, if you were blessed by this, you can go to Sabrina's information. Like I said, I'll have it down below in the description. Until next time, remember, let your light shine before all men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Until next time, be blessed.